I'd like to use what you said as a segue into David's work, because I think one thing that David's done for as long as I've known him, and obviously longer than I've known him, not only has he been committed to doing documentary work that mines his own personal history, but he's done really quite incredible work in terms of documenting the undocumented in Toronto, and especially through the project of Regent Park. And the question that I would like to ask you, and you can take this in any way, and if you have prepared notes, go with those. But you've seen a lot of Toronto, and you've seen Toronto change from the days of the Racist Ontario Museum to now, and I know you've been a part of those changes, and I'm wondering if you could kind of expand on that, speak personally to that, and speak to that in terms of your own photographic and documentary practice.
Sure, okay. It kind of lay bare the differences between me and my siblings. My mother, my natural father, my biological father's from Ghana, and my mother's German. She came to Canada in 1957, pregnant with me, and then she married this Italian, George Zapparoli, and he was the man who basically raised me, and all the following children were from that union of my German mother, my Italian father. So I essentially had a European-Canadian upbringing, and I think that's important to note. So the photographs, when I saw the photographs, and even in the taking them, they always kind of pointed out, my differences, that I was so different from my siblings visually. So that was very important. And I guess a lot of time goes by, and in my 20s, I did eventually purchase my own camera, and I thought I'd be using it for, recording special events, like going to a sporting event, be it a track meet or whatever, and recording things there. And it did just so happen that, I did eventually start working in a darkroom with a camera. It was actually the Parliament Street Library. That was another turning point for me, because that's where I got my exposure to darkroom photography. And, in the beginning I was self-taught. But that's really where I learned the alchemy of photography, and for me it became kind of a magical thing, working in the darkroom and seeing these images come up. I mean, that was the cutting edge of technology at the time. If we're talking about 1980, working in a darkroom for me was definitely the thing that pulled me into photography, and that's really why I ended up enrolling in Ryerson and eventually taking it at the university level. And I always was aware of my rarity at Ryerson as being one of the only African Canadian students there. I think maybe there was a couple of us out of the student body of maybe 200 there. And I have to fast forward a little bit to maybe second year to come to another kind of signpost in my development. And I guess in my psychology of where I saw myself in the medium of photography, it was in one lecture, 1982. The instructor, he started his lecture, was read at the start of the lecture, and of course these things, they always happen when you least expect it. The lecturer, he stands up in front of the class and he says, "I wonder what Toronto was like before there was any black people." And I thought, oh, okay, well, he's had a bad day, obviously, or he's had a bad week. But then what bothered me more was that there was people in there that actually applauded, and then that kind of like situated me a little bit, and I thought, okay, I'm understanding a little bit now where, how I fit in. And it kind of like, I guess it planted a seed in me as far as, where I was fitting in the whole scheme of things. And I did have a lot of